now the main event, as we call it, right? Let me bring up Anne Marie, who's the VP of Graphic Packaging, and to tell us more about what we're going to hear today and where we're going to go. So, Anne Marie, welcome.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Lochner. I'm the Vice President of Direct Materials for Graphic Packaging, leader of paperboard packaging here in Atlanta. We employ 17,500 people, and we have 75 locations worldwide. And I'm betting that most of you, it's the first time you've heard our name, but I'm promising you, you probably used our packaging today, as we're found everywhere, as in beer, cereal, soda, and if you had a cup of coffee today, most likely it was in our cups. So I'm here today to moderate the panel in regards to delivering instant gratification, the holy grail of commerce, right? And I have a great panel today, starting with Melanie.
Before we do that, I think I failed to say that as we go through this, we've put together something different today, which is if you go to your browser, go to slido.com, put in this event code, and I'll show it to you on the next screen, G534. If you have any questions that come up as you're thinking, as you hear the folks speak, then go ahead and key that in and we'll address as many as we can. So we're trying to do this where you can get most of your questions in, and hopefully we'll address that. Sorry about that.
Great. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I'm Melanie Alavi. I am a Director of Customer Technology Marketing at UPS. I'm delighted to be a part of this panel. My fellow panelists are supposed to come up here and join me. I think that's what we rehearsed. So you guys come up. Yeah, let's come up. So yeah, tonight we're going to each kind of introduce ourselves and give the context from which we're going to speak. I've been with UPS for 19 years, and primarily I'll be speaking really from the viewpoint, obviously, of a carrier, how we are helping enable this instant gratification that our consumers are looking for. This happens not only on a B2C front, but also from a B2B perspective. We work with our customers every day to help deliver this experience. So I'll be speaking really from that perspective.
Thank you, Melanie. So my name is Bhaskar. I'm the CIO for manufacturing with GE Power. Not as much instant gratification where I come from. I don't think my boss would be happy if I said a part might show up. I think it's more of planned gratification, but I think the context I could provide and questions would be welcome. I'm here to share views and understand how everyone thinks about it. But we have north of 130 plants around the world. If you think about all the parts that need to go in, all the suppliers, all the things that we move around just to keep that supply chain moving, it's massive. There's a ton of technology that we use, a lot of bots, a lot of analytics. We're trying a few cutting edge things, IoT, shop floor. I've got a number of virtual reality, artificial intelligence efforts underway. So those are probably the areas that I'd probably weigh in on as we go through the rest of the day.
This one. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Ashley Liebke. I'm an independent consultant, and for the last 3 years, I've been the VP of Marketing of a cloud SaaS supply chain software company. Prior to that, I was with UPS for 11 years. I had the good fortune to work with Melanie and Elba here in the room, and I was able to manage alliances between UPS and Amazon and Google and other really important technologies that help goods get moved to consumers every day. I also got to build world-class applications that were used by over 16 million people, like UPS.com shipping and labels, and it's all about customer experience. Everything needs to be really usable, easy, connected, and everybody wants real-time data visibility. So it just requires a lot of connection. So for the last decade and a half, I've spent time not only making personal connections and building partner relationships and alliances, but also bringing those technology plugs together. So that's what's exciting, and that's the perspective I'll bring today.
All right, this worked, hopefully. So thanks for having us out. I'm Spencer Askew, the founder and CEO of Technology. Based on the spelling, we focus on knowledge and intelligence in the logistics industry. So I've been an entrepreneur in the industry since '05. So we've seen a lot of movies play out in logistics and supply chain in terms of innovative solutions, technology platforms, and really industry needs. So we have been fortunate to see the industry through the eyes of pretty much all types of shippers, whether you're an e-tailer, retailer, manufacturer, distributor. And then we've also serviced the non-asset carrier community as well as the asset carrier community. And so our industry gets kind of we're very fragmented rap, and mainly that's around software platform integration and data intelligence. And so what we do as a core business is artificial intelligence. So through the years, we've evolved from a transportation management system tech company to an AI-based tech company. So also with the name, we're very neutral in terms of integrating with pre-existing software. We think that a lot of companies have used software. UPS, for example, has invested heavily in their systems running their company. And the question we ask businesses all the time is that software intelligent? Is it making your people operate as a better version of themselves on a day-to-day basis to perform at a higher level in this on-demand instant gratification world? And so we built a solution and a platform. So we'll kind of come and address the conversation, some of the questions today from, really everything on demand and everything self-service. And how do we make organizations operate way more intelligent as you try and contemplate millions of scenarios to make, really, from a shipping standpoint, the order get placed to the product show up at your home. There's a lot of things that happen between then, and it feels like auto magic, but ultimately there's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of data that really make that a reality. So we're fortunate to see kind of all the underpinnings there. So that's our perspective.
So we have a great panel today, and we have a couple of questions to start out with. Vasco, I'm going to start with you. Why is a company's approach to supply chain and logistics important to the success of the company's overall customer experience? And what are a few tricks to survive in the age of Amazon?
Okay, so is that working? Can you guys hear me? All right, so, I'm not so sure I can take the part on the Amazon piece. I'll probably leave that to Melanie and UPS, and I want to listen to her answer that. There we go. But so what I do want to, hit for a second, I think, is at the end of the day, supply chain, in my world, it's OTR. From the time I take an order, and forecasting comes before that, all the way through fulfillment and when the parts get to a customer. And then you think about a lot of what we do is turnkey. So it's large project management, large EPCs in some very remote and difficult countries in the world. So you think about the KPIs that drive what success means to us. At the end of the day, is meeting a time, a schedule, a plan, because of all these complex pieces that have to come together, irrespective of I'm a lean guy at heart. So you think about all the entropy and the things that can disrupt you. And you're always looking for leading indicators to what might not happen because you couldn't catch something on time. So a lot of technology for us is not just on the cost front in terms of automation and bots and virtual reality, but we're always pushing the envelope in terms of how we think about our supply chain. Planned gratification, I mean it, is the key to success for a lot of what we do in the industrial supply chain world.
That's great. Melanie,
And
do you want
that's
to
the
take?
UPS part.
Yeah, do you want to take the Amazon part?
Okay, so how do we survive in the age of Amazon? I think that's the question, right?
Correct.
So we have a lot of, obviously, customers that ask us that same question, and this is something that, we talk to retailers and industrial buyers as well, industrial distributors, et cetera, about. Really one of the angles that we come at, we do a lot of thought leadership studies, frankly, at UPS. We have a great one called Pulse of the Online Shopper, if anyone's interested in looking at it. It really comes at it from the consumer point of view of what consumers are looking for as it relates to instant gratification. So oftentimes what we're consulting and talking to are retailers, but also we have industrial buying dynamics. We talk to B2B customers as well about this is, really customers are looking for choice. So when you think about the checkout, right, and you think about what customers are wanting, they want choice in terms of delivery options. Obviously expectations, Amazon, let's face it, they took away the ultimate pain point for all of us as consumers, which is free shipping. Nobody likes to pay anything for shipping, which has made it obviously difficult for their competitors. However, they are, stepping up really to compete. So, what we find in this Pulse of the Online Shopper study specifically is consumers are really looking for options. It doesn't necessarily have to be free. Obviously, if you have a free option that can be slower shipped, that's a good thing. But you need to have options so that they can, you can meet their expectations. It's funny, when we first started this study, and Ashley actually did it at one point for UPS, it was exciting from my point of view because we were like, you know what, consumers are really saying they only want like 7 days. They can wait 7 days for a package, but Amazon's creating this expectation for 2. But really, look, our consumers say only 7. Well, obviously that's changed over time. So here we are, fast forward 5 years later. And certainly those expectations have shifted, and our customers that we serve expect that as well. So we really say, look, you need to offer delivery options. You need, and we do have some stats that will say, 75% expect a free delivery option. Now, that delivery option could be to pick up at an access point or something. It doesn't have to be necessarily delivery to the doorstep. We've got other options. But that's kind of what you need to be looking for, is how do you enable choice and convenience for customers? And that's some of the big things that come out of the study. Do you want to add to that, Ashley?
I did have just one comment, because what's interesting, I think, in the last 5 years of what's happened is it used to be that shippers were trying to figure out, how do I get my goods to the consumer? And part of it was about placing the goods closest to where the consumers are. So you had to know who your buyers are. Of course, if you sell candles and you're based in Seattle and you have one warehouse in Seattle, how do you compete with Amazon's 2-hour shipping to get goods to Florida? Well, you can't really. So that's where I think the partnerships come in. And I love what one of the warehouse and logistics analysts with Gartner, Dwight Klappich, says. He's kind of coined this term of the ubiquitous logistics grid. And so that's just creating this network of networks. And so what happens is you have the shipper partners with the carrier like UPS, but they may even have to have some 3PLs along the way, or some of these other companies like Sudo to help with some of those freight or regional movements. So I think that's what's really exciting, is this connections, and people are trying to get a little bit more value through the connections that they make, because shipping rates are going up. And so you just have to, how do I get that good closer to that consumer in less time, but also having the seamless data flows, which means that you need to have wireless and mobile devices all along the way, and that data's constantly going up in the cloud so that every stakeholder and party along the way has access to it. So that's really exciting with companies like Spencer's too, because you have to design those frameworks, you have to make them work, you have to have good quality. So, that's going to keep us busy for a while, probably.
Should we go on to the next question?
Sure.
Okay. I'll let you guys choose who wants to answer first. What are the company's biggest logistics challenges, and how are they using technology to solve them?
We see, you kind of touched on the points, but there's really demand, expectation, and capability. And so whether you're a shipper, a forwarder, or an asset carrier, you're dealing with all the same 3 topics in terms of all your demand, the expectation of your consumer, your customer, and then your capabilities. And so what we're seeing, and to kind of tag on to the Amazon effect, so that's a negative movement for logistics, by the way, because shipping is not free. And I think any company that has a cost center in the area of logistics and supply chain, free shipping has had a tremendous negative impact to that part of the P&L of most companies, even wireless providers. You ship a phone to a consumer, they expect free shipping. Well, we all know that costs money to get the phone to our doorstep on an upgrade. So from that standpoint, really having the ability to drive cost out of the supply chain and the business to try and counterattack this negative free shipping kind of movement in the industry, it's forcing companies to reevaluate the on-demand world that we live in versus the expectation of the customer, and then the capability within their supply chain and their software platforms. And so, a lot of companies talk about big data. There's gold nuggets, we call it, and we try to help with our AI platform companies mine the value out of their data, create integration, but also advise on the data and then execute on it. Because a lot of companies, you can't necessarily hire an army of analysts to figure out how to make your supply chain way more efficient. You need a machine to be able to farm that information as well as advise on the information. And so we're seeing just a lot of kind of forced direction into the area of technology investments across organizations to try and streamline what they do and how they operate. And this company in Seattle, they can either figure it out reactionary, that they've got a high product order coming in from Florida, or they can be very proactive in terms of, doing statistical analytics through a machine to kind of forecast the ordering model to help them align themselves with partners in those local or regional areas to deliver same-day shipping. And so it's pretty cool. I mean, we're seeing, we work with clients in the e-tail world where when you're online trying to buy a product, if you ever walk into any store and for an in-store pickup and the solution consultant at the store asks you if you would like to buy X, Y, and Z, and that happened to be a product that you abandoned online in the online catalog, it's probably our software recommending that to the online store guy to create intelligence. And companies are having to kind of reinvent and re-innovate the way that they sell and maximize margin, again, because shipping is a big cost structure and a cost center for most organizations. And so we're just seeing a lot of cool things and cool movement within our industry that's typically slow to kind of adopt to those new technologies. We're kind of being forced to just because of some of the negative P&L impacts that have been created from some of the not-so-free conversations being had. So.
Well, I would just kind of reiterate or just say something to add to that because I think that's really important. That's exactly what we find is the inventory optimization piece is one of the biggest pain points, obviously, for retailers. How are you going to locate something close, have the ultimate supply of SKUs and have everything close to your customers so you can enable same-day delivery? Or, how are you going to operate this so that, you can get your customers what they need but not have this oppressive cost of inventory? So AI is something that certainly, obviously, Spencer's company does that we are seeing more of our clients as well looking into. And this kind of started back with retailers really looking into how do I have complete visibility of my inventory across all my stores. So as people started to do the buy online, pick up in store, the biggest issue was, frankly, retailers really weren't prepared to look into their inventory everywhere. So this is evolving, and with the technologies of AI, this is something that's really exciting, I think, for our clients.
Yeah, maybe we just pick one spot. So you think about what she just said on inventory, but you now multiply it by a factor of X, and you think about an entire supply chain network. And if I were just to pick one area, I could take this in 20 different directions. But you think about decision making at an executive level where you're starting to plan and you're reacting at the same time to everything from currency fluctuations to I had a hurricane come through a certain area and that disrupted my supply chain, and what am I going to do about it?
Or another Instagram star came and took your market.
And I'm not going to talk about China and tariffs. So at the end of the day, a lot of what we deal with is trying to make sure that total cost of what we do, and total cost, logistics is a huge part of it. Cost of quality is a huge part of it. Time is a huge part of it. Once I've paid for it, if it's sitting in inventory, is a huge part of it. Supply chain velocity is all about how fast I can bring a part and how fast I can get it out on a planned schedule. Advanced modeling is kind of, I think, where we would want to go, where you can model your entire network. You think of it as a digital twin of your network. And if you think about a bunch of parameters on the left and you said currency changed and the rand went from 14 to 11, what did that do to my total cost? And if I made that switch, should I go from a make to a buy decision? Should I switch to a different supplier for a certain period to mitigate that? Can I make that an opportunity and make my margins a little better? So I think for us, it's, and I can talk about 15, 20 challenges like that, but at a supply chain network perspective, that's a fascinating opportunity. You just think about the profitability of an enterprise that's moving, $8 to $9 billion of inventory through a network a year, and what a percentage point on that could be.
Yeah, and everything's on demand. So you can't really get product on demand unless the companies handling your product have data on demand. And so, from just a pure wireless perspective, we're seeing that technology kind of push to the nth degree as well within an industry that, again, is kind of slow to catch up, typically speaking. And so wireless and device information is kind of first and final and throughout a life cycle touch point. And so we're seeing that leverage through, the 90% of trucking companies. That guy's been using a pencil and a paper and he's still using a fax machine if that still works. So in this era of on-demand everything from a product and a consumer perspective, we're having to leverage data technologies to deliver data on demand to make that happen on the front end. And so, again, all the things that you don't see when you're riding around or you're ordering things online, but these endpoints and first and final mile type endpoints are very critical to making data visibility really a proactive approach, because again, in logistics, people want information communicated quicker, whether it's good or bad. And typically speaking, the logistics industry has not necessarily had information available proactively to tell you and I, the consumer, when there may be a delay on a shipment. We're aggravated, but we still want to know it rather than getting home and it's not there. Two different ways to deliver the data information. So mobile apps and mobile devices really keep everybody plugged in, maybe more than we want, but we require it. So it's been pretty cool to see the evolution with that as well.
It's kind of amazing how, as consumers, I think everybody probably here has a phone in their hand, and that's the most powerful supercomputing device there is. And so as consumers, we're just enabled with all this information, and so I think businesses were the laggards. They're trying to catch up and be as connected and as in real-time data as consumers are, really. And the exciting thing also is when you get behind the scenes in the warehouse, or even you could be in a retail store like a Target or something, all the sales associates and the workers now have mobile devices. There used to have to be specialized hardware with special scanners that was more expensive, and now you can take a $99 kid's Kindle and throw it 25 feet, it bounces, you pick it up, it's still working, it scans, it can take pictures of things, it can talk to you, train you, give you instructions. And so we can deploy workforces so much faster in retail environments and behind the scenes picking and packing, because the devices are so powerful, so they can run this powerful technology either through Wi-Fi or cellular, Bluetooth, and backup. So I think that's really exciting because businesses are now enabled with cheaper devices. So again, sucking a little more value out of the whole economic equation and making everything faster, because it's got to get there and everything's got to be so nimble. So it's exciting.
I agree, and I think that kind of fits with one of our next questions. What emerging technologies do you all expect to have an impact over the next 12 to 24 months, both hardware and software? How are they delivering business value? Give us examples to make them more real to us.
Well, okay, I'll just start with one. A fun one for all of us, I think, for IoT as an example. So, from my industry standpoint, we're looking at this both internally within our operations, obviously how we enable all of Internet of Things, but then I'm looking at it more personally from a marketing perspective on how we enable that specifically for the consumers. So for us, that looks like, how do we deliver to the places the ultimate convenience to the consumer? Speaking of instant gratification, you want delivery, ideally in the trunk of your car, you want delivery in your garage, you want delivery inside your house, you want, however you are looking for it. We need to be able to, we're looking at things like that, right? So this is something, IoT, from our perspective, that we're seeing within the industry, that's certainly the biggest thing that's coming to transform the way that we look and ultimately deliver that convenience for our customers, really, the end consumer.
If I didn't say AI, you guys would look at me funny.
Yeah.
So we definitely see that as kind of the next iteration to help companies kind of up their game in the area of intelligence and staff performance. And our industry is full of really smart people, but it typically lives in their head. And every company has really smart people. You hire a person, they have a great resume. Your legal department will actually try to harness that knowledge through a non-compete and a non-disclosure agreement to keep knowledge within the walls of the company. So our approach and our thinking, a little bit different perspective from a consumer, but as a software company, we've also seen a transformation in the area where our customers don't want to email or call an enhancement request for our software platform and have to wait on that during a development cycle. I'm sure within the companies represented here, you guys, the business figures out, hey, we need to upgrade our software. It'll make us more efficient. We can meet the business goals and objectives. And so, but when you have to submit it, you think it goes into a black hole. Maybe it comes out in 6 weeks. Maybe it's 12. Maybe it's never. And so we're of the mindset that just like consumers want product in order on demand, kind of instant gratification, we've taken a huge approach with our core platform to deliver AI in a self-service mechanism. And we also recognize that it's not all about artificial. There's a ton of user intelligence. And so the instant gratification there would be to take the CIO of GE, things that he knows that can and will make his company operate more effective, but he doesn't have a budget to hire 50 analysts, but he knows how to approach data analytics, and he knows how he would advise his people on how to handle certain logistics and supply chain situations to keep their company obtaining and achieving those goals and objectives. And so we've kind of checked the instant gratification box by delivering to, say, a company like GE. Their smart people can log in and enter their own intelligence that lives in the wrinkles of their brain into the DNA of the software in real time. And from that point moving forward, the way he sees the world based on his company's intelligence and his industry intelligence is now captured and housed into the DNA of the software, and it will live and help advise other staff members when they're logged into whatever system they're using to do their job more efficiently. And so, again, just kind of a game-changing next level view of it's not all about telling a machine what to do for the business or having a bunch of robots take over the world. It's a marriage between, we call it applied intelligence, not so much artificial. So it's a big knowledge library, it's user intelligence plus machine learning. That's really applied intelligence, because paint in a can not applied to the wall is just paint in a can, right? And so we see that in the minds of a lot of our organizations that we work with, a lot of smart people, but being able to infuse that intelligence into the DNA really helps accomplish the goals and objectives.
You know, where I might take this is a little different and for the right reasons. I could talk in terms of, I just spent an hour and a half today afternoon with my team, and robotic process automation, bots, active tracking. You've got Bluetooth that can tell you up to a few millimeters where a part is. I can track it to milliseconds. You could toss a ball and you can track it. I've got, virtual reality. You can track movements. You can create a work surface of a plain tabletop, and you can put anything you want on it. You can type on it. It's going to send signals back. So technology is fascinating. But the one thing that I find, this is amazing, and it's not just at a company level, but almost at a society level, if you will, is almost this culture of integrators. So if you think about what you could do today for a second, it's not about inventing a Raspberry Pi or the next best code or an espresso that's connected. And if you think about the heart of IoT and why it's so powerful and this power of crowdsourcing, any one of us could sit down today, sit in a different country, in a different place, and you could turn an espresso machine on. You can buy a $30 Raspberry Pi, you buy an espresso machine that's connected to your wireless, you buy, download a little bit of Python code and decide what you want to do with it. You could set that up yourself. So the fascinating part about what's being unlocked in the IoT world is RFID technology is not new. It's been around for 30 years. But just the way that we're starting to put these things together, and to his point, none of us is developing code as much as we used to 10 years ago. It started to move into this world of how do I put these things together for a meaningful outcome, and what problem am I solving? So I just want to give you guys that perspective that a lot of what we're doing now is not inventing these things as much as keeping a real sharp eye on where the industry is going, and as they do things, how do I put that together for something that makes sense to me?
Just real quickly, the thing that I see coming is just these networks of networks continuing where there's apps that are powerful, but you see in the app stores, and it's just hyper connectivity that's already plug and play because people instantly need this combination of sets of things that they know. I don't have time to go to market to go to these 30 or 40 different solution providers, but if I go to this one provider and they have everything already networked, and I think we're going to see more of that, and then concentrations of market dynamics because certain groups of providers are starting to have some compelling value add and synergy by coming together. So time will tell, but you see some of that power with same-day delivery, and Shopify Plus is doing really well with B2B e-commerce sites, bringing them out of the dark ages. And so there's some, interesting dynamic partnership happening.
Well, and as we get to partnerships, what other partnerships are companies pursuing to improve the delivery experience for that last mile?
I mean, so that's obviously one of these big costs that we're talking about, last mile delivery. And as Spencer kind of said, I think all of us have seen, we're kind of representing the underbelly of e-commerce and sort of what really goes on behind the scenes. It's not easy to get everything to enable this instant gratification that we're talking about. But yeah, I think, wait, say that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought with
No
that.
problem.
Tell me the question again.
What partnerships are?
Oh, the partnerships.
Yep.
Right. So for us, for UPS specifically, same day delivery, enabling these like ultimate last mile networks, we have partnerships, for example, with a company called Deliv. And that is, us trying to see how we are able to do these last mile deliveries and enable same day in a network currently for UPS that is, our traditional brown package card networks where we've got union employees that we've got a great relationship there, but we have to have some more flexibility to do what customers are doing, what Amazon is currently doing today. We talked about this earlier on the panel, the fact that Amazon's out there hiring delivery drivers for this coming peak season, really to get more Amazon packages delivered because that's what's needed. So there's a lot of these last mile partnerships that lots of logistics companies are looking to partner with. That's really important. So that was going to be my angle. I think Ashley might talk about.
The retailers just want you to go pick it up yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That is what they want.
I mean, it's interesting because, it's like consumers love being able to see, as long as I can see that the inventory's there. I mean, I love when you need something, I need that. And that's when instantaneous gratification comes from, is because I have this very strong need or an urge or a deadline. And so, that's really powerful when you can show inventory and it's there. You can let them make their purchase and then let them go pick it up. It solves some of the consumer delivery problems, because doing onesie, twosie shipments to consumers has blown the profit margins out because you can't afford to have free shipping all the time. And so I think it's interesting how there's consumer adoption of things that actually benefit the retailers, but the retailers are forced to have a better store experience. They're having to take another look back. And what I think is fun is going back to the older times of retail when you went to a shop and there was things going on. And so a lot of retailers that are changing the game are having a lot of experiences in their stores and, experiential marketing, live events. They're driving loyalty, especially in the luxury markets. And so some of that is around instant gratification. But certainly we're not at 2-day delivery anymore. I think we've got to start thinking about how we can get 2-hour delivery. And as a retailer, I don't know how I would keep up with that. And that's when obviously you do have to find some great partner like Deliv or something.
Right.
So we see autonomous vehicles as probably a solution as well. Self-driving cars, most people are texting anyway, so they're kind of letting the car drive itself already. So we're already there, I think, socially. But I think if you segment our industry, the logistics space, into two topics of conversation, one is small package, the other is in freight, this whole final mile challenge or problem that logistics service providers are dealing with is more on the freight side versus the small package, right? Because you've got your big providers for home delivery in terms of the Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, and so forth. But when you talk about a package that's larger than, say, 100 pounds in the definition of freight, that's when you're trying to create partnerships among 90% of the guys that can perform home delivery, that do own trucks and can drive the vehicle and have proper licensing to make that kind of intimate delivery to the house. You have to have platforms that can connect all this disparate network of all these one-off trucking companies that aren't regulated by the union, right? And so, so from that standpoint, just the continued advancement of really putting platforms together that can pull together these one-off companies that do home delivery freight, it's a big challenge in our industry. Some of the largest companies like an XPO and other freight companies, that's the biggest topic of discussion in their boardrooms right now, is how do we solve this final mile, because e-tail and e-commerce has become such a huge component. And we're seeing a lot of the legacy big box retailers start looking at their storefronts as now distribution centers to do same day delivery, right? So they're looking at them as inventory hubs that to fulfill e-commerce online orders so that they can do from a store to home delivery. They already have that network. And so we're just seeing companies just really leverage data to reinvent how they apply the data to solve business problems that really are affecting all companies right now.
And also, I think it's exciting to see how differentiation comes into play because, you know, as any business, you need to have a couple core competencies. You can't be everything to everybody, so you have to sort of anchor in. And it's exciting to see, like XPO supporting a lot of the furniture business. Furniture was notoriously very hard to deliver, very expensive. And so in the e-commerce world, like how do we make furniture e-commerce last mile friendly? And what XPO has been able to do is to create these value-added solutions where not only are we going to deliver this kitchen table to your house and have a delivery window, but the gentleman is going to graciously come in and assemble it for you. And, you know, it's not going to be IKEA style. We're going to actually put it together, make sure we put it in the right place. And so they're finding this niche in combining that service with the logistics. And so that's an exciting forum where you can just sort of break out and say, this is where I'm going to find my market.
Right. One more partnership that I'll just mention is, I mean, speaking to this logistical challenge, like imagine how many cars on the road or trucks on the road trying to all deliver as, you know, the explosive growth of the $4.8 trillion global e-commerce market is. I mean, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, for us, we have access point partners as an example. So especially for customers that live in, or consumers that live in urban areas that have difficulty accessing packages, or UPS will not leave, obviously, a package in an unsafe place or what is deemed to be unsafe or out in the open. You know, we need to have access point partners or, you know, small storefronts to deliver to that will accept those packages, which of course then drives commerce to their stores. So that can be a, you know, so that is a growing network that we are experiencing, not only, you know, more so outside the U.S., frankly, because more people will go to a tobacco shop, for example, to pick up their package. Less so in the United States, but certainly in the urban areas, that's very, very popular. So those are other areas of partnerships that we're exploring.
Well, I can tell you the panel's doing an excellent job because there's a lot of questions coming in. So let me pick one or two here. What's the panel's opinion on if the Uber model and if that can work for the last mile delivery?
That's a great model because it's all about the sharing economy. It's just, you know, if you have data of available drivers and what they're willing to transport when and how, then you can bring that together. And certainly Uber Business and Lyft are going to be going head to head.
And birds.
And birds.
That's good.
And then there's drones. Yeah.
I mean,
Well, actually, drones was another question. Is what do you all think about drones? So,
No, I was going to take the previous one.
I'm sorry. Sure. And the question was around packages that are being delivered by cars that seem to be just personal car, and how does that kind of occur? Is the
Right. So, I mean, so I'll just answer that from the standpoint of, you know, so Amazon is a good example of their, you know, network is blowing out. And so therefore they have, you know, this is why we just discussed earlier, they're hiring people to deliver more packages. Amazon does have contracted delivery drivers that they use to deliver their packages. UPS, you know, I don't know when you've received one of those packages exactly, but you know, certainly I will tell you over peak season, I personally have delivered delivered UPS packages out of my own vehicle. That might happen again this peak season. We don't know, but that is where you'll see like a bigger force of UPS corporate employees likely helping deliver those packages. No, but generally speaking, I mean, honestly, that's, you know, we at UPS certainly pride ourselves on the delivery of these packages by our very friendly driver. And, you know, I don't know where we're going in the future in terms of partnerships of that last mile delivery. I can say we're exploring some certain things for sure. But primarily that is one of the differentiators that we do consider at UPS, I will say, the fact that you should have a package car driver delivering your package. Now, the post office does deliver packages for UPS. A lot of consumers do get confused about this. The post office is bearing a lot of the brunt of this last mile delivery, frankly. Amazon uses the post office, UPS uses the post office, FedEx uses the post office. They do that that last mile delivery for a lot of our packages as well.
It is alarming though when you look out the window and I saw this guy like running from my bushes down to my mailbox and I didn't see a vehicle anywhere. But yeah, it's the delivery guy.
Okay. Should we talk about the drone?
Yeah, so what was the question?
The question was around the drone and last mile delivery. Do you all see it as a viable option?
Okay, I'm sure there's multiple people that probably want to answer on this.
No doubt.
Yeah, so
For a small package, for sure, it's going to be hard to deliver a pool table. In the near future, with a drone and the freight side of the industry, so I think kind of looking at it as the two cutoff points in terms of weight and dimensions, and then also it's kind of the integration story around, at what point do you want the delivery to be more than just to your doorstep? You want some auto magic, just having everything work when it's set up and put together in your home, even down to electronics. If you've got a home delivery that can set up and fully integrate your home of the products that you ordered, again, that may be a specialized type delivery. But I think in a blanket statement, a lot of the parcel packages that the Postal Service is carrying the brunt force around, for sure IoT and technology is going to be able to drive drone deliveries as a massive solution. Even to the extent, from an ecosystem standpoint, just environmentally friendly, when you think about launching drones, everything around shipping is velocity based. So it's location and how much. And so if you could move a UPS truck to the center of a neighborhood, park it there, save gas, and then have drones doing package deliveries to all the homes in that particular area, super viable solution. And that's coming sooner rather than later, for sure. Yeah, so the question was, has the FAA kind of relaxed on their regulations here? So there's big checkbooks from a lobbyist perspective that's making some pretty good headway in that area. Yeah. And the technology is available to have that kind of, these guys aren't running into each other.
Okay. So his question is: are we looking at other methods of last mile delivery, including I'm taking it like scooter delivery? He's talking about various methods in Asia and how they're using motorcycles, et cetera, to do that. And we're kind of getting more to that point in Atlanta where the urban environment could enable that. So, certainly, UPS operates obviously all over the world, and we have various methods of delivery. Certainly bikes are a part of that, as an example. And there's lots of other companies out there that really are looking at, there's actually a company, sadly, that did go out of business recently, and the name is escaping me, but you guys might remember it. I'm going to look to Ashley, but that really did do a lot of, bike delivery in various metro areas. So yeah, no, I do think that's all coming. UPS is always looking at ways to, I think, like everybody else, to do the most cost-efficient delivery in its local markets. And we're piloting various things in different local markets to enable that. Do you guys have any other comments on that? Okay.
Okay. Well, one of our next questions is, what do you believe is the key to tracking logistics and the optimization behind it?
The key to tracking?
Yes, to track.
Oh, to track in logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we kind of talked a little bit about that. So I actually have the tracking application on ups.com, so if you have any complaints, please come see me. It's a big responsibility. From our standpoint, so just like you said, until you've got like a sensor in every single package and actually can see the movement like everybody would like to see, just like you see your Uber driver every moment of, GPS enabled coming to your doorstep. We don't have the technology from our perspective yet, and it's coming, to have in the shipping label, as an example, a sensor that could allow us to track all the way across the globe. That is like enabling the end all be all of visibility. Certainly that's a place that we would like to get to. We are not there quite yet.
And it's kind of surprising. I always thought 10, 12 years ago that RFID would have become more used, and that it would just be something that was sort of standard fare. But the analysts Gardner, Forrester, whoever say that global visibility still has about 2 to 3 years before we actually reach the level that we need to be. So it's really essential having real-time data. It requires these mobile wireless type devices, like I said earlier, but it's all those tracking locations, and unless you have something like RFID to have it in a mass scale, then you have to deploy more devices. And so I think that's happening, and it's on an increasing level, especially global, but the connection between UPS to USPS, and you do lose visibility sometimes, and those are the gaps that are trying to be closed right now by the IT folks, and just closing all those loose ends.
Yeah, I think, so there's two angles to it the way I see it. One is the technology itself in RFID. In an industrial setting, it really becomes a cost-benefit equation. I don't really need that granularity every moment of the day. I don't need to know where it is, as long as at the point of consumption it's available when I need it. The part that I find fascinating with what big data is sort of released, the partnerships between the suppliers. You think about an Oracle trade module where all of my suppliers are on my platform, is I can start to stitch together without large investments, without having to put in the traceability myself. I can rely on the large carriers to give me that wing-to-wing visibility. And as long as I have an integrated supply chain with my suppliers and the processes in place, I can track as much as I want. So maybe a different slant to it, but the ability to connect multiple platforms seamlessly and pull data without worrying about where it came from and where it needs to go, I think that's the power without spending a lot of money on the infrastructure. Because Samsung versus Apple, I don't really care in one sense. You know what I mean? I don't mean this in a bad way, but as long as I have the carrier providing the service, I've got the consumer knowing where it's going, I'm actually pretty good, I think. So just a different slant on it. So his question is, do you also look at small niche players that might have a patent in an IoT piece that might be able to help us? Did I get that right? Okay. So, I think that's fair critique. At the end of the day, any large organization suffers from, being able to reach and touch, and which is kind of why I come to forums like this, so I can learn about these things. So yes, there's probably 20 things out there that we could use. I think the problem that we have to solve when you think about a company that is operating at scale is it's all about standard work. You have to be able to not only imbibe that technology and do something with it, and I go back to the example, right? Today, and I'm not exaggerating on this, but you could buy a Raspberry Pi, I'll just take that as an example. You could download a app, VNC, it's just a remote app on your phone. You put that Raspberry Pi at home, and you could be anywhere in the world, and you could look at what the camera is seeing. Now, you could do that in a couple of hours. You don't need to. Now, think about that 10 years ago. So, it's a fascinating cultural question, and the way we try and do it is we call it moonshine. But you want to moonshine IT, right? Which is, I want to provide the license. I want to provide the platform. I want to make sure that the Raspberry Pi is secure. I want to make sure I can patch it. And then I want to give it up to the users to be able to connect it with whatever they want to do inside a certain set of guardrails. That frees up the innovative capacity across the ecosystem for people to go try things. It's not the old days anymore of I worry about every phone I have, I need to know what's on it. No, all I really care about on a phone that I give to my users is if something bad happens, can I wipe it? As long as I can wipe it, I'm good. You can now do whatever you want on the phone pretty much. So I don't have an answer in the sense of do we really do a good job in reaching out to every niche provider, and Sudo would be a great conversation. I have a personal example there. All of these are my personal views. But the context of how I, in my role, have to adapt what I see into something the organization can consume is one, standard work, two, guardrails, and then my job is to facilitate the culture and provide the ecosystem that people can try stuff. Because I'm not going to be in every single shop, in every line, in every vendor, in every supplier being able to do these things myself. I'll be waiting a long time if you want to innovate that way. I don't know if that makes sense. So
You're
that's
the
part
rules
of
guy, right? You're the
I'm
rules guy. Okay.
And the rules you can break inside safe limits.
Okay, well, I hope everybody else has been enjoying the conversation as much as I have, but it's time to kind of wrap it up here. And my understanding is there's some questions that should be going across Slido for you to answer. So if you could all answer the first question, we would appreciate that. In the poll section, sorry.
So his question is, I think, what demographic is really, I think, doing the most ordering and has the greatest need for instant gratification. So from our research, when we look at various studies that we do, certainly the millennials have the highest expectation, for example, for delivery options, like I just said, the highest expectation for same-day delivery. In terms of who's doing the most ordering online, I couldn't tell you that right off the top of my head. I don't know if you guys do. But certainly from an expectation standpoint of the demands of instant gratification, all of our studies kind of break out the millennial category, and invariably they are higher. So I think that's just because they're digital natives. They expect everything. As we say, instead of better, faster, cheaper, it's flawless, yesterday, and free.
Oh, yeah.
That's the expectation.
There you go. Okay.
Which then puts all of us out of business.
I learned something. That was good.
Flawless, well, yeah, exactly.
With that, I think that was a good closing comment there, and I want to thank all of you for being here, and thank everybody for being here, and the panelists. I'd like to give you all a small token on behalf of the Wireless Technology Forum, and we hope we'll see you as well as the audience here again. We meet here on the third Thursday of every month, and we hope to see you next month. Thank you, and drive safe.